Welcome to another edition of Driven to Lead. I'm your host, Wayne Brannon. In this program, we explore the real stories from key executives to find the leadership lessons that drove their success, whether in good times or bad. We got a great program for you today, so let's make it happen. All right, today we're very fortunate to have with us on the Driven to Lead program Todd Sager, President and CEO, founder of AWE, Performance Exhaust Systems, out of Pennsylvania. Todd, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Wayne. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I don't always like to start off with awards. I don't want to embarrass you, but there was an award you won last year, 2024 Top C-Level Executive, Titan Peer Group. Is that a group in the Pennsylvania area that recognizes executives? Because that's a pretty impressive thing to start with here today.
I think they've got chapters in most metropolitan areas at this point. So yeah, I was fortunate to be selected from the Philly region.
Great. And you've been in business, I think, 34 years, you told me. And I don't know, you must have started when you were a teen or something?
Kind of, yeah, Wayne.
Yeah.
Not that far off, actually. I think I was
Yeah.
22. So just
Okay.
in my early 20s, yes.
Right, yeah. Now, you told me at one point you went to university for a philosophy degree. Is that why you got into exhaust systems?
Ultimately, yeah, I mean, when you have a degree in philosophy, you definitely don't have a career track. So the world is your oyster.
Yeah, there you go. Now, you did say though you were always a car guy. You were kind of into racing and reworking various vehicles as you were a young man.
I mean, up until starting the business, I actually hadn't turned much of a wrench. I mean, right before starting the business is kind of the era of wrench turning. But yes, I was always into the cars, could tell you all the 0 to 60, the horsepower, make, model, price. Yeah, I was a stat guy. Loved cars.
Now, can you tell us, like even back then, was it really that important to have a performance exhaust systems on those cars you were trying to get to go fast? I mean, the blowouts and all that kind of stuff. Was that really like a main focus?
So my real kind of focus of what I enjoyed the most were the European sports cars, and not so much with the Europeans, but the exhaust category in the domestic. Yeah, you go back to the 50s, right? If not earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what came to mind when I was thinking about performance exhausts in the old muscle cars of 50s and 60s for sure.
Exactly.
So it sounds like very soon after you learned to turn a wrench, you started a business working on some of those foreign import brands.
Yeah, not necessarily by choice, but that's kind of how it worked.
Yeah.
Again, no career track, but that's, yeah, it was after driving around the country in a 72 Volkswagen camper van. That's where I got the practical skill set of turning wrenches, because that's about all that happens with that thing. It breaks down.
Fun vehicles, though.
It was a camper van, right? So it was the essence of freedom.
Yeah,
go anywhere,
absolutely.
stay anywhere, pop the top. But yeah, we
now
how many America, me and a buddy.
How many years was it from the time you actually started a business that you evolved into AWE and when that was formed?
Well, actually, it first started as the hobby, and then what I was waiting on tables and was not able to make a living doing that because my hands were never clean enough, and I got fired from being a waiter. So I started the little hobby shop on the side as a revenue stream. So pretty much was, out of the gate, that was the beginning of it. And it started at that very, very humble beginning. And there was no like, stop, take a break, let me try this again. From day one of opening the doors to today, it's been a 34-year run.
Now, was there a defining moment when you realized that this was going to be a real business and a career and you're going to be able to scale this thing? I mean, what you've accomplished is absolutely amazing in the time you've been in the business. Was there something that really kind of let you know that this was it? This was the path you were going to pursue?
So at the beginning, it wasn't manufacturing. It really was, it was a speed freak. And with that 72 Volkswagen camper van, there was a restoration component to it because rust was a thing. So at the very beginning, I didn't know if it was going to be restoration or speed. I really was trying both. I didn't have the patience for the restoration, as it turned out, which kind of makes sense if you're into speed, got to go fast, right? So the speed shop is what kind of I wanted at the beginning, but you have to build a reputation. And that was slow. I was working out of the, a section of Philadelphia. So there was a lot of density there, but not necessarily a lot of sports cars. And it really was, it was the early 90s at that point. So maybe 4 years into the business, the internet was becoming a thing, mid 90s. And there was a lot of enthusiast type of, what they call forums. Well, back then it was even more humble. So there was a lot of internet gatherings of enthusiasts, and you would do knowledge share. And I had this little tiny business, and being on the internet, you're talking to people literally all over the world, but at least at that time, across the US. And it made me be able to look like I was bigger than I really was. I mean, the knowledge base was there, but we were very small, humble. I don't know if it was we. It could have been just me at that point. I hadn't hired my first employee until maybe 1994. So getting that reputation on the internet, that helped a lot. Next thing I knew, I was having people calling up to ship me their car from 2,000 miles away, and that became a thing. I was able to catapult into more of not a regional repair shop, into more of a branded speed shop pretty quickly because of the internet.
On Driven to Lead, what we do is we talk about leadership principles. So far we've talked about a philosophy major who learned to turn a wrench and is working on cars, trying to decide whether you're going to go speed or performance. And now I look at the size of your company. You got a 32,000 square foot facility. You've got multiple OEMs you service, multiple vehicles, multi-million-dollar business. And I read on your website and in your profile about some really important leadership principles that you espouse, that you feel you're the person leading the culture creation for your company. So you realize how important culture is, and you focus on team accountability for all of the successes that you have. So that's an impressive migration from where you started. So what I'd like to do during this time we have together, Todd, is I like to try to find the pearls of wisdom in the leadership experiences that we have along the way. And it's all about the real life stories, things that really happen to us. So if you'd be so kind as to share a story or two about your business, about a major hurdle or a key turning point, or how you scaled it, those kinds of things, I think that would be a great place to put our focus for the next few minutes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, it started as one man shop. So culture was, I answered to myself at that point. So there really wasn't this awareness of the need for culture as it is with a lot of small businesses, right? If you're fortunate enough to keep scaling, you keep adding people, and then you keep realizing it's all about the people. And that's where culture becomes a mandate, or at least you want it to be a purposeful culture, not an accidental culture. So I won't say that I was some cultural guru out of the start, nor was I a leader, because it was a one-man show, and it took many, many years until we got to that critical mass where culture needed to become the focus. And probably, with businesses, when they don't realize that, they don't necessarily keep progressing. So yeah, I would say that there was this kind of, I could wear all hats at the beginning because I could do all the different things. I felt like I knew more than I did. And then when you couldn't have the bandwidth to do it yourself, and you would hire somebody to do that specific function, you always knew that you could do their job. So you had this kind of expectation of, like, do it this way. And that micromanagement, that kind of, top-down authority, that's what ultimately can keep you from growing in a healthy manner. And it took me a long time to kind of realize that just because I knew how to do their job, I couldn't be frustrated and upset when they didn't do their job. I hired you to do a job, do your job. That's not how it works. You have to find the way to make it a defined culture, a safe culture, so that people aren't worried about messing up. And you have to find the way to get out of your own way and not make it all about you. The CEO isn't the one that's running the business. The CEO is the one that's making sure the business can run. So if you're the one at the top running it on a day-to-day business, ask yourself, well, you're the bottleneck. You may be getting in the way of what this business can do.
Yeah, no, that's really an important insight. And I think you know, being focused on the people and demonstrating to them that you care is really the kind of culture you have to have if you expect people to pull together and to have that kind of collaboration, that kind of ability to align strategic direction, all those kinds of things that I'm sure you experienced along the way.
Yeah, learned a lot of lessons along the way. And again, even the cultural lessons had to be learned multiple times. Like we thought we at one point had a defined culture and we had our core values, and they were maybe 10 or 12 of them, 10 core values, 12 core values.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even repeat them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes that kind of like illusion just because you've defined core values. If you maybe have them hanging on a wall somewhere in your organization, well, defining them and making them real are two different things. And if the CEO can't even remember them, and they all sounded great when you came up with them, right? They all were like, of course, this is really important.
I like
If they're
this one.
not
Yeah.
alive,
Yeah.
right? If they're not
Yeah.
alive in the culture, if not alive with the people,
Yeah.
it's an illusion. It's not having any real impact. In fact, it could have the difference, because anybody that is looking at that and seeing that the culture doesn't embody that, now you're not putting your money where your mouth is, and you can be
Yeah.
undermining the culture.
Right.
So
I
that
bet, I bet
that
you
was
have some
years ago. We
examples.
thought we had a culture.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one of them being that, just because you have core values doesn't mean that they're doing anything. And we scrapped all our core values at that point. And this is going back probably 7, 8 years, if not longer, probably
Mm.
longer than that,
Yeah.
previous pandemic. And we came up with 4 core values. And really, and I say we, it was, I started the business and was 100% shareholder until about 2011. And then brought
Mm-hmm.
on a minority partner. He was, that's when the brand was, I realized that we may have had a brand at that point. So marketing became important to the company. And I was engaged with a Philadelphia marketing agency. My business partner was one of the owners of that agency. He sold the agency and was actually looking for his next chapter. And he approached me and wanted to know if he could come on as an equity holder in the company. And I thought we'd make a great team. I'm more of an operational guy, and he's creative marketing with a obviously track record that I knew of. So he came
Good.
on board, and since then it's just been the two of us as the sole ownership of the company. But yeah, I would say maybe 9 years ago, we
Mm-hmm.
redid the culture with this concept of it's got to be memorable.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't memorize, if we can't at any given time state our core values, then again, how are you going to make it live? And because if it's memorable, then you have a fighting chance, should you use the tactics to make it live in your organization, which a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it's just repeating it, repeating it, repeating it. And you can't
Mm-hmm.
just repeat, you got to live it, but
Right.
repeating it and making it memorable. We've got a lot of graphics of these, of the 4 core values all around the organization. So you got these
Mm-hmm.
mnemonic devices, anywhere in the organization. You have any trouble remembering them, you can just look up at the wall and there's these 4 logos. And
So I don't want
at
to
any
put you on
given
the
time,
spot.
I can ask them,
I don't want to put you on the
are
spot and
they?
ask you what the 4 are, but I guess I have to do that. You might remember them since you said they're memorable.
Right. If I couldn't, I could just look up there. You can see the
Okay,
four.
good,
But
good.
no, so first one is we build better. And that's a concept of continuous improvement. Like
Yep.
we're a company of you never get to go in cruise control. You never get to say that it's completed. You're in a mindset of continuous improvement. How can we make it better? And that's anything in the company, right? Not
Yep.
just the product, but the work product. It could be, anybody in the marketing department, how they do campaigns, somebody in the finance
Right.
department. So we build better. We help each other, which is teamwork. So strong concept of teamwork, of
Mm-hmm.
cross accountability to each other. This isn't, top-down
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy. We help
Mm-hmm.
each other. Third one is we see through the customer's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is customer-centric from the concept of not just the end user, but your customer may be your coworker. If
Right.
you're on the production floor and you're
Sure.
working the saw, your next customer could be the operator of the mandrel bender. So
Right.
you're always putting yourself in the customer's shoes and trying to see through their eyes, which
Mm-hmm.
builds that teamwork because you're all kind of having perspective of what everybody else is going through. And then the last core value is, and this is the most important, I own it. So we build better, We help each other. We see through the customer's eyes, and I own it. And I own it is accountability, personal accountability. Without the accountability, you can point to all these core values as far as what everybody should be doing, but it's like, don't forget to point to yourself. You're supposed to be doing it too. So the personal accountability is the most important out of those 4 core values.
I love those. I mean, those are absolutely on point. And, you can have a lot of core value. We could add 20 more. You could talk about integrity and trust and, all kinds of great mutual human respect and shared responsibility, things that I love and I think are great. But boy, to boil it down to a few that just really drive the performance is really great. This last one, when you said I own it, and one of my colleagues in some of the bigger companies I've worked in over time, we used to talk about the difference between people in the company who were owners, and there were always some people in the company, because it was a big company, who were just renters. And they didn't care if they mowed the grass or made sure that the gutters were cleaned out or anything of that sort. They were just there to take up space for what they could get out of it. And it really is an important cultural aspect to take ownership and be part of something. So I absolutely love that. I mean, I love all of them, but I think that 4th one's real powerful. Let me ask you a tough question, maybe. Do you get called on it? I mean, do people in the company come up and say, hey, Todd, well, you said that we're supposed to help each other. Well, look what this happened. What do you think about this? What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I mean, we have a suggestion box, so it's not that they're supposed to just, do that or else. They can give feedback, and we don't just assume that the suggestion box is where they're going to give feedback where they don't agree with it. We also do regular kind of survey pulses to go, around the hierarchy and make sure that what you're seeing at every level is real. So there's plenty of opportunity to call out anonymously in person. We have an all company meeting once a month where we get the whole entire company together, and we make sure that we talk about these topics. There's an award for like the We Build Better award. So there's a lot of opportunity to say like, hey, you're saying this, but we ain't doing that. But the actions keep proving to us, because, look, surveys, again, if they're third-party surveys, you can't game those things. And we get a lot of evidence that these things are not just, again, logos on the wall, that they're actually lived. And look, we have enough other metrics to measure, like a productivity metrics. You don't get productivity if you don't have engagement. So there's a lot of ways to double check.
And there's a lot of people. I mean, just to give the listeners an idea, you got how many people in the company now?
We're about 55 people, so we're not a huge company.
But it's pretty good sized company. Either. Yeah, no, it's a pretty good size.
We're a solid middle market company, so not just head count, but revenue wise. So you have a lot of the complications. So you have a lot of the these type of management that you have to deal with, and it's all about the people. So we have that we redid our vision too, because of that idea too, that we needed to really lean into this cultural concept. And there some of the popular pushback you get, not necessarily from internally. However, I've gotten internally now and then, like new executives we bring on, that they don't necessarily believe in culture. You hear that. And I think it's because there's some companies that like they get too focused on the culture for the culture in and of itself. Right. And if it's a business, look, the culture is a tool. It's not about like, hey, are we just high marks on culture? The culture is a tool that serves the bottom line. It serves the business. It has to serve the business. You can't just make it all about the bottom line, because you're not going to get the buy-in of the people that have to drive to that bottom line. But if you're just making it about the culture, that doesn't work either. So it really is like you have to, make the flywheel turn. You have to couple up the culture in service of a result, a financial result. And that's how we redid our vision because of that a few years ago. Cultural values serve the vision, and the vision speaks to the people, number one, because we realized we weren't doing that.
Right. So when you think about the last 8 to 10 years since you've actually put this in place, I expect that this has been a period where the company has scaled faster and created more growth than you had previously. And just efficiency while doing it being the most important, right? You can spend your way into growth too, and that's not the right way to do it. We've had because of the engagement that we have gotten,
again, not just assuming, but, testing on it and then seeing, again, productivity being one of the examples, one of the benefits of a strong, engaged culture.
Yeah.
Our productivity is very high. We have a profit sharing program that really even incentivizes them even further, solidifies that concept of like, we're all in this together. But with the productivity gains while you're scaling, you're also doing more with the same, or with less sometimes, right? But if you're constantly just adding headcount, resources, et cetera, you may be growing, but you're not necessarily growing your bottom line. You may be shrinking your bottom line.
Right.
It's another favorite
absolutely.
term I came up with. Revenue is a false profit. There was years and years of me just focusing on top line sales. That doesn't cure all. Sales can cure all if you like, look, if you're not running it right, it gives you kind of a, the saying sales cures all, gives you a lot of room to maneuver, but that's not how you run. Shouldn't run it on just sales.
Can cover a lot of sins as well. I hear you. Yeah. I want to try to be productive and efficient for sure. Well, I think that's great. And, it's really important to hear this idea, just to reiterate what you said, that it's about culture and results. And I like the way you've designed your core values and beliefs to get everything aligned with that. And I especially like the fact that what you didn't have to say in the top 4 values is that you care about your employees, because that's obvious that you do. If the next customer on the line, their eyes are watching what's happening and they're important, you obviously care about them. And if you have a profit sharing program, it obviously shows that you care about them. And if you think about what it means to build something better and to be a part of something special, it really emphasizes that idea of owning something and being a part of something that makes sense. And so all of those things are very highly focused on the experience for the employee, and the end experience for your customer as well. They get a better product at a better price because it's more productive as well. So all of that just fits together so nicely. It's a little bit different approach than you might typically hear, but it's not about how you talk about the culture, it's how you live the culture. And I love the fact that you've gained great ground in the marketplace and with your business, like working on these things.
So real quick, just when you're talking about doing it differently, our vision, right, again, is kind of the North Star. That's your pledge to your customer, your employees, everybody. That really we did differently. Like when we went to redo our vision statement, which was about like a AWE product in every vehicle on the planet, like the
right.
We decided that really wasn't, like, it was too remote, too distant from the people here. Maybe that spoke to your customer. Maybe it gave somebody like, oh, we're gonna get real big, but it was too remote. We redid our vision 3-4 years ago and decided really to do something that we didn't see in any big corporate brand. We didn't see any of these brands, Patagonia, Apple, name all the big brands. They all are very customer centric, right? Or product centric in service of what the customer. And we always, we've been talking about this engagement, this culture in service of the business. And so it starts with the people. I mean, everybody says that, but how come it's not in anybody's vision? Like if it starts with the people, what do we, it seems that, modern capitalism assumes that the employee is just going to be like sacrifice because it's about that customer. Well, it starts with the people. So we redid, after many months of iteration and discussion, our vision is to build the best performing people who build the best performing products on the planet. So if you're investing in the people, you're not just doing it, the people because they're the end result, because if you invest in the people, they will build the best product, which inevitably will make the customer happy, which keeps that flywheel going.
Absolutely.
We didn't want to ignore the customer, but we didn't want to make it all about the customer, because it starts with the people. So the people in service of the business.
I love it. I think that's a tremendous way to wrap that whole package up. And let everybody know that's what your focus is and that's what you're going to do. And obviously you're doing it. So I expect there's a lot of benefits, in terms of lower absenteeism rates and lower churn rate and all those things that you're seeing relative to your competitors as well. So yeah, big congrats on that. So was there a concern now about staying current and how you kind of take the business to the next level? Is there some
Yeah,
some kind of next step that you feel you need to take with the business? Because the one thing that I've learned over my few years working in the business is that things change every week, if not more often, and you got to change with them, or you got to innovate, you got to be creative, you got to understand your competition, got to meet your customers' needs
100%.
in a new way. I mean, if you get the fundamentals right, like you've done, Todd, in fairness, I mean, if you get the fundamentals right by supporting your people that way and having the right internal focus, you can do anything, but you still got to innovate and move with the market, right? So what's that look like for you over the next couple of years?
Yeah, well, one of the threats or challenges when you're scaling and putting in all these standardizations and processes and best practice is that, yeah, you have to be careful you don't go become complacent, go in cruise control, because there's no such thing, right? We all know the other saying of either you're growing or you're dying. There's a real point of saying no, and there's no in between, right? There is no, or you're just staying the same. That's the illusion. Because if you're
Yeah.
complacent because you think you've gotten all your systems there, and now it's just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Well, your freaking
Yeah.
customer, your competitor, there's a
Hmm.
finite amount of demand out there. And where are they going to get that demand? They could be
That's
taking it
right.
from you because you've become complacent, right? So
Right.
it really is something that is always top of mind, is how do we keep relevant on not just what the customer wants, but also to fight that kind of like, inertia and that average kind
Yeah.
of complacency that can creep into an organization as you keep scaling.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, we're all about new product development. So we invest heavily in research and development. So there is constantly this creative spark. It's not just we build the stuff and now we just sell it every year and look for the new customer to buy the stuff that we've been in our catalog forever. We're
Yeah.
constantly relevant in that
Good, good.
concept of the new vehicle, which we don't just do it because it's a new vehicle. We, have our secret sauce and how we do the business case analysis and seeing what the opportunity is there. But should it make the hurdles to get to, new product development, it's clean sheet. We don't just say, all right, take this, take that, slap it together, get out the door. Like our tagline for the company is the best sounding exhaust on the planet. So there's this acoustic mandate that is there that first and foremost when you're creating the product. So you can't just say, well, this fits. That's a new SKU, put it in the box, send it, right? There is this mandate. It's got to pass the acoustic standards, which is more the art than the science. But
Right.
that keeps us like constantly striving for that. Like this is the new product, which means that we
No.
got to make sure it checks all the boxes.
Just a
But
curiosity.
there's enough. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, just a curiosity.
Yeah.
Are you working at all on exhaust sound for EVs?
Right. So we talk about like staying relevant, and then you
Yeah.
have to be aware of the
Right.
threats. And
Right.
obviously, the macro threats being one of them is there's no exhaust systems on electric vehicles. The electric vehicle owner is not the one that cares about sound, or else because they don't have to buy an electric vehicle. They can buy
Right.
a car that it makes sound. So that's a different customer. I mean, it seems like something you could do. I think one of our competitors did it, but it's kind of then rings hollow with your core customer base that you do have. They'd be like,
Yeah.
what's that
Probably
about?
more of a
They're going to
safety
know the
issue than
limits.
anything, right? I mean, it could be a safety concern as
Yeah.
well.
And in that regard, if it's a safety, like make it a beep or make it a Jetson
Yeah.
sound. But
Yeah.
like if you're buying an electric car, you don't want like to sound like an
Like
internal. You bought the
68
electric car
muscle
because you
car.
don't care. You don't want the
Yeah.
internal
Right.
combustion.
Right.
Like
I agree.
it's noisy, it
Yeah.
pollutes, like all the the negative connotation. So that's
Oh,
not the future for sure, but
yeah.
that's
Probably not.
and that's electrical engineering anyway. That's a whole
Yeah.
different
A
discipline. We're
different
mechanical engineers.
different kettle of fish for sure.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, it's been a great conversation. Really, really value a lot of the things you've shared today. I think it's going to be interesting for everybody who's listening to this. So, just to start to wrap up, looking forward, um, be interested based on your journey and how you came through all of this. If you had to give some advice to your younger self, let's say your 25-year-old self, I mean, is there anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share that would have made a difference faster, better?
Yeah, I mean, maybe going back to that statement I said of revenue is a false profit, like, you tend to focus just on that top line sale. It's this, it's an ego metric. You're gaining more market share. The business is growing. Like, it seems like that's where you should focus, but, truly maybe it was from that lack of understanding of P&L. I didn't have any formal financial training. You have to do your accounting basically for your taxes back at that stage. But
Right.
truly about running the business is you want to make sure you're working on a budget, make sure you're working at a given target bottom line that serves what you're trying to do with the business. So yeah, focusing on the bottom line rather than focusing so much on top line growth. You got to focus on both,
Yeah.
but more so on the bottom line than the top
Yeah.
line.
It's a whole business. That's good advice. All right, one last one. So you and I sitting on a front porch of a cabin in the woods, looking out over a lake, sunset, perfect temperature. 20 years from now, okay, let's imagine I'd still be around, and we're talking about the things in our lives and our careers that we're most proud of. What will you be most proud of, Tom?
I mean, look, we're a brand, and that is one of the most important aspects of a business, regardless of what business. You can be in a B2B manufacturing business. You still need to develop a brand. And the brand basically is that kind of place mark of this didn't exist and now it exists. Now it's on people's tip of tongue, like, they're talking to their friends about it. They've got an emotional connection to it. Like, that's truly taking nothing and making something out of it in a durable aspect. So yeah, our brand, it wasn't like I bought this company from somebody else. It wasn't like there was an existing product line that we just slapped our name on. Like, it truly was this most humble and basic as a start, a converted horse stable with no running water to what we got now. And it really is that the brand is known, and
Yeah.
that humbles me every day.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, that's a great way to end this conversation, because a brand is something that really demonstrates a promise or a commitment to the people you serve. It's your employees, your customers, your clients, and you're serving a lot of people around the world in a wonderful way. And I think that's a great testament to all the things that you've learned along the way. And I appreciate you sharing that with us today, Don. Thanks so much.
Sure.
All right. All right. Look forward to chatting with you again, and we'll end it there. All the best, Todd. God bless.
Thanks, Frank.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for being with us. If you like our conversations, please feel free to hit the subscribe and like buttons. And if you'd like to make comments, ask questions, or even explore being a guest on this program, you can reach out to us via email. It's wayne@greatroad.com. That's WAYNE at GR8ROAD.com. And until next time, always remember, the high road leads to a better place.